Hi everyone.
Hey, hey.
This is Lawrie. He was my instructor when I learned to fly, so it's really nice to see him. And today he's doing a review of the Ozone Roadster 3 for Cross Country magazine, and I thought I'd call him for some paramotoring knowledge, because what, this wing is kind of a hybrid?
It's not a hybrid, it's a paramotor wing, but you can use it for paragliding. It's standard paramotor setup, so A's, B's, C's, D's, so 4 lines, or 4 sets of lines, not 4 lines, that'd be very fast. But yeah, you can use, like today, so it's a reasonable breeze, 10-12 miles an hour. Last night I was paramotoring in nil wind, and then today I've been paragliding with everyone else, even though it's a paramotor wing. So
right. Well, I don't know anything about paramotors, and I want to get into it, so I think starting with the wing is actually probably a good way to go. Do you mind if I ask you a lot of questions about paramotoring?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So first thing that comes to mind is, why do we have 4 risers, A, B, C and D?
I don't know exactly why, but generally most, at least beginner intermediate paramotor wings, tend to have A, B, C, D lines. Extra weight, not too sure to be entirely honest.
And this is EMB?
This is EMB.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a fairly standard setup. Split A's for your big ear, B's which have tip steer on, which I'll touch on in a minute, stabilo line, C's, and then your D's. And most paramotor wings nowadays are magnets, as opposed to poppers, just because it's a bit easier and quicker. And normally, he says, not that I would just let go of them whilst I was paramotoring, but normally if you do let go,
they end up finding it.
Right. So yeah, the tip steer is an interesting one if you're not used to using tip steer. So when you are, so at the moment we're trimmed quite slow, but if you trim it out fully fast, so if you have a look at the difference between the A's and the D's now, it's a much lower angle of attack, but what happens now is you have that reflex in the glider. So what you don't want to be doing when you're in the reflex mode is start pulling the main brakes, which affect most of the central and some of the outer brake fan, because the central pressure moves forward, so if you suddenly pull the brakes, you'll likely get a big collapse.
So reflex, I've heard about it, but it's kind of like the shape, changing the shape of the airfoil, right?
Yeah, the central pressure moves forwards and you get kind of a bit of a lip on the trailing edge. So it makes it much more stable, partly because you've got that change in profile and also the central pressure moving forwards, but that's also why you don't want to be pulling the brakes, because then essentially you're doing that to the profile, and you're likely to get a bit of a collapse. So instead of using the main brakes, you have tip steer, which, as it says, go right out to the tip. So when you're flying fully fast, you can use the tip steer without having any issues, and it will still turn nicely. Speed bar, earlier on testing it, pushing the speed bar to max gave me about 10 kilometers an hour over trim.
I've noticed before that just from by eye, the profile, like the shape of a wing, when you look at it front on paramotors, looks a bit different.
Yeah, I mean,
to paragliders, like instead of a smooth arc, it's almost like a flat bit with like.
Well, it completely depends on the design. So if you've got more of a continual arc, it'll be much more rolly. If you've got a flatter centre and it just comes in a bit more at the tips, it will completely change the characteristics of the glider. So This one will probably be a bit flatter. I don't know if you notice it.
It does look like that. Yeah.
Whereas the 17-metre free ride that I paramotor with sometimes is much more of a consistent arc. It's more for playing and around much more rolly. Other than that, the only other difference is some paragliders are starting to get it, but everyone will be kind of used to the leading edge rods. Now on this glider, I've not actually felt yet, they don't go back too far. They probably go back a little bit further in the centre, but you've got the A attachment points obviously behind the leading edge, like most shark nose sort of gliders these days. And then for extra strength in that leading edge and to keep the shape nice, on this you also notice that between the sails they've got another... I think the Lynx had that as well.
So in between sails.
Yeah, and I think the Rush 4 has it, Rush 5 has it now. I think more gliders are having it, just so when you're flying kind of flat out, just holds the shape a bit better. The last thing you want to be doing,
that fluttering stuff.
The last thing you want to do is be flying fast, and that will create loads of inefficiencies. If you've got fluttering along the leading edge, that's going to ruin
propagate
the
backwards and get turbulence down the profile.
Other than that, you'll probably see different to a paragliding wing. I think it has both paragliding weights, and paramotoring weights. So on this Roadster 324, you've got free flight weight 65 to 85. So I'll be sitting today probably at around 80, 85, and then paramotoring up to 120 kilos.
Right, and that's an overview of the Roadster 3 and paramotor wings in general for me. Hopefully you've learned something from it as I did. So big thanks to Lawrie, and big thanks to all of these people on Patreon for supporting the channel. And if you enjoy it, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.